All right. We are back in the new building here at the 48 Burj Gate. And, things are moving up. There's so much going on, and it's hard to keep up. But I want to have a relaxing time, just kind of like have a fun conversation with Praveen from Itheum. Uh, we're not going to go dive deep into Ethereum because it is such a comprehensive protocol, and definitely I love what he's working with in terms of data privacy. But this is going to just be a fireside chat. It's going to be all about Praveen, all right? Because he's the most important guy I know. So that being said, hey Praveen, thank you for joining in at the XT Cast.
Yeah, hi, Marcos. Hi,
Hey.
everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, always good to have these informal fireside chats as opposed to drilling down into the product. So yeah, let's keep it informal, and it'll be good to share some insights too.
Yeah, sure, sure. Hey, so thank you for joining in. And, I did get a chance to, look over the Ethereum website. You're covering data privacy, Metaverse, and you also got quite a deck of products related to data collection and how regular Joes like me can own the data than compared to the big boys in Web 2. But I'm kind of curious to know about your story. Now, like you have a different past. I want to know your origin story. So how did you, Praveen, get into the crypto and the blockchain space?
Yeah. Well, that is an interesting story. I mean, considering that, I suppose I'll start from the beginning. I suppose pretty much. I'm from a very traditional space, and I started from engineering. So I'm actually an engineer by profession.
Yeah.
So I have an engineering degree. I'm far from what I'm actually getting involved with and doing now, but certainly that's something that I actually always started doing. I enjoyed it from a very young age. Left the country when I was, 16, pretty much. Went to do my higher studies overseas, and then worked in Malaysia, Singapore. Did my higher education in engineering. Pretty much worked in Singapore for about a year, again in engineering field. But then I made the trip to Australia, right? So, and I pretty much spent 15 years of my life in Australia. And while there, that's when the entrepreneurial spirit kicked in.
Nice.
And basically decided, okay, engineering is good, but let's try shifting a bit into the business aspect of things, right? So pretty much, I think I would have been about 24 at the time. So early stage back in the day,
Right.
I think maybe 10 years back, that was considered young to start a business. Now it's like, the norm. Everyone's starting a business in their early 20s now. But back in the day, it was like not very common, right? And that too, being a foreigner in a new country, it was all the more challenging. But it was, again, engineering. So I started sort of working, and I was studying part-time, doing my master's degree, again in engineering in telecommunications. So while I was working, I met three other guys, and we started our own engineering service business. But it was again to do with data. It was to do with basically essentially putting together systems that collect data from an engineering perspective. That could be from mining, it could be from water treatment, it could be from all these very data intense industries which are process oriented, process driven. Essentially accumulating a large amount of data and then doing post-mortem analysis, looking at future trends, basically if this manufacturing process was to continue like this, when will this next equipment break down, and then according to that, look at future modeling and all of that completely data related aspect of things. That's when, so we were doing all these systems, and sort of I did that for almost about a decade running that business. Then another opportunity came up where I came out and went into hospitality. So again, a complete swap from one industry to another. In hospitality, obviously. Yeah. It was a big change. New industry, had to learn new terminology. Travel industry is so different. So I've enjoyed it thoroughly, right? Because you get to meet people. I mean, the travel industry brought me to Dubai, for example. If not for the travel industry and the hospitality industry, I'd never be here. Right. And that was one of the best things that happened to me swapping to this field, was to get exposure to a lot more. And again, another industry where data is king, really, because you've really got a lot happening in the travel industry. And that's how we met as well, right, Marcos? Like we're talking about
right,
hospitality and travel industry. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what they were doing to adapt these newer Web3 technologies, because a lot of the industry is still very traditional in that space, right? So got into hospitality. We're doing hotel software, so operational software that runs hotels all over the world. So pretty much worked on that for about 5 or 6 years. And then about last year, my brother came along and said, hey, look, I'm doing a crypto project. And I was like, what is this? Because I never really got into it. I didn't know anything about it. I mean, obviously I'd heard about Bitcoin and what it was, but didn't know anything about it at all. Like this is like a year back. So he very patiently started educating me over a course of, about a month.
man, I need to thank your brother for his service.
Hats off to him, right? Like, exactly. Only family can do that. Have the patience to sit you down and basically teach you all this stuff. So it was a very interesting experience. I mean, he'd been doing Web 2 stuff in health for a very long time. And that was in Australia, where actually he used to do a lot of work for the Australian government and stuff like that in the health space, another data intense space. So he did some product development work in Web 2, but then we thought, okay, let's look at this new scope of Web 3, right? Because it's really something that's picking up. There's a lot of interest in it. It's a new industry, a lot of new tech that's coming out. And how can we use this tech, to basically bring data to the fore, right? But in an interesting way, right? And data is just so complex and boring. Most people just go to sleep when they listen to a data presentation, right? So we thought, okay, let's try and do something different, right? So we got together. We started Itheum as what it's known right now. Itheum actually means heart in our native language, which is actually Tamil from South India. So good fitting name because it's related to the health industry and it came from that angle. So obviously we thought that's an apt name for us to use. And pretty much got into that whole space. So I started learning a lot about the industry and while obviously the hospitality business, I built a team and they're running the business at the moment. This was more so a new industry that we could basically take the data angle, but more so the whole idea with this was basically to bring the power to the user, right? Because right now in the current state of things, with all of the big companies, a lot of the data is harvested from you on a, minute basis. Each time you pick up your phone, it's watching what you're doing and it's listening what you're doing, right? And each page you click, how many times you click, everything's recorded, right? And essentially it just goes to someone and it's used for something. We all know it is.
I know. No need to mention.
I mean, it's only a matter of time because you're looking for something, and then sure enough, 10 minutes later, you have some ad popping up somewhere telling you that this is what you want to buy, right?
Right.
So it's all being used, but not with our consent, right? So this is where I guess Itheum's power is essentially bringing that consent down to the user level. Right. And we are trying to educate end users using a bottom-up approach. So we're trying to educate as many people as possible about the power of owning your own data. Right.
That's quite an interesting concept, really.
Yes. So it is something that, it's something that everyone's more and more conscious of nowadays. Like I think compared to maybe a year back or 2 years back, most people you speak to, no matter where in the world, it touches them in some way, right? Like, that something is not right with the way that how we are just being used as, I guess, sources of data for the benefit of others with us getting no benefit out of it, right? So that was what, basically brought my thinking, along this line. I thought, yes, this is going to be the future where you have a decentralized system, that evolution from Web 2 to Web 3, like a completely decentralized method of doing things and where you have more ownership, more accountability. I think that's what a lot of people would struggle with is the accountability part. You're in control, but at the same time, it has risks, right? So, so that's the whole journey behind, how I got here and, got to this point. So hopefully that was interesting enough.
No, definitely not. Because to me, it's, no, first of all, thank you for giving such an interesting journey. Like how you started from an engineer, and then from engineer into hospitality. I think being in the hospitality space, you have to be pretty extroverted in many ways. And then you got into the tech space. Somehow it's quite an interesting journey. Because I wanted to ask you about hospitality, because I know we connected earlier about the World Tourism Forum. They had an event over here, and how they're using blockchain. But I wanted to ask you this question about hospitality. Maybe you can tell me it's right or wrong, because I was under the impression that the hospitality industry is notorious for being traditional instead of being advanced. I mean, I know they use a lot of tech stuff, but in many ways they're pretty old school, outdated in many ways.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely true, right? Like, I mean, right now, most industries, we look at most verticals, right? They've pretty much made most of the shift towards cloud-based systems.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
Like hospitality is only getting into it now, right? So it's just so behind, and that only happened because of COVID, right? If COVID didn't happen, it would have continued on the way it was, right? But COVID forced that whole concept of taking things to the cloud.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
And that's where we saw massive transition, right? Like, so for our hospitality product, we were doing maybe 90% on-premise pre-COVID, right? Like 2019,
right.
90% on-premise, 10% cloud. But right now, it's almost flipped. It's like, 70% cloud, 30% on-premise, right? So such a massive change. And it's just mind-blowing how much the industry has shifted a lot, right? In the last 2 or 3 years in the post-COVID era.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know. Yeah. I mean, that is fascinating. Yeah. To just learn about the hospitality industry, because actually I learned it through my girlfriend, because she worked with I guess a loyalty program for a pretty big hospitality group. So it was interesting to learn that. Now, anyways, but back to you. Now, I think what's the commonality with you was you've been focusing on data, like from the engineering perspective, then data from a consumer consumer perspective, like looking at trends, but also from, I guess, traditional industries too. But it is interesting that you have focused on like a comprehensive outlook when it comes to data in the blockchain space. So is there like a particular reason why you're so fascinated or focused on data? Like, I mean, what makes data really, important for you? Like, why does it matter? I mean, for a lot of regular people like me, like if someone talks about data, like, data analytics and stuff, I go to sleep. So, I know it's kind of bad, but I'm sure you can kind of give me, your point of view. Why does that matter?
Yeah, well, look, you're right. And as I was saying earlier on, data is a complex subject, right? And what's unique about Web3 is the fact that we can take a completely different approach to it than a traditional approach, right? A traditional approach with data where you talk these terms like BI, AI, ML, all of these acronyms, which, people just throw around, which just goes above your head, right? Like nobody really understands what it is. And they're just fancy things that people like to use, or terms that they like to use. Right? So you know what I'm talking about.
Sorry, before you say anything, like, whenever someone uses all these terms, right? Like, data driven or machine learning and stuff, in my mind, I personally think they're just full of whatever, so like, it's kind of hard to, because I maybe like a handful of people who really actually do care about it and have a personal story. So that I think that's what I would give respect, but normally, like, a lot of people keep throwing that. So that's why sometimes I'm just like, wait a minute, this is just too much for me. But anyways, please go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So those are there in the traditional space. I'm not saying that they're not important in Web3. They're actually very important in Web3. But the power with Web3 is the ability to own it yourself. And we are more focused on like the personal data angle, not data in general. Because data in general is quite a vast subject, right?
Sure. Okay.
But we are looking at personal data and basically how we could let users claim and own that data and get something out of it, right? So, when you're incentivized to provide your data, right, and you're getting something out of it, you're monetizing it in a way, right? It's an additional revenue stream for you.
Yeah.
If someone is willing to pay you for it and they say, okay, I think your data is valuable. Are you willing to share it with me? You would think twice about sharing your data, right? And you still have the option to say no, but you get something out of it. You're willing to share more in effect.
Okay,
right?
gotcha.
So this is where the whole angle comes about the Web3 angle with data. And the good thing with Web3, what we've seen or what we're trying to do is gamify it in a way, right? So that it makes it a bit more interesting, right? So it's not that traditional old subject, so we are trying to gamify the data, personal data angle by giving it a slightly different approach where makes it interesting, right? So the concept that we have is like what we call like a data avatar, right? So it's essentially a representation of you in the metaverse, but it's not just purely a cosmetic, non-utility NFT, right? It's basically essentially backed with data, right? So each time you start loading data onto it, the character changes, so it basically starts getting accessories, it starts getting a new skin, it might get a new headgear. So gamified in a way, but as you start adding more and more data points, and these data points could be any data point. It could be gaming data. So it could you could be collecting like gameplay data of what you're earning and what you're spending on as far as, because all of this stuff is available on chain, right?
Right.
So we're just harvesting this data on chain and basically attaching it to your profile. Now this data is valuable, to people who actually want to understand a gamer's profile, like for example, right? So for example, a guild, a gaming guild as they're called, where they recruit players and, basically make a clan of them and essentially put them to work and earn a percentage of their revenue, right?
Gotcha.
So they need to understand the player's background. And this is where the data angle comes in, but in a way where the player says, hey, look, I have my data, I'm sharing it to the guild. The guild is giving me some money for it because they think my data is valuable. So like this is one angle, but we got the same play in health. So we're also working with a number of health entities where, they collect sensitive data like DNA data, genome data. But right now, there's nothing going back to the end user, right? The end user gets nothing out of sharing this data. They're just harvested by a third party and then on-sold, right? So the idea is essentially make it so that the end user is incentivized, by providing this data. And when the incentivized data is provided, the quality of the data is better. And when it's pooled and actually traded, the value of the data increases significantly too. So there's a number of things that actually happen here, but Web3 sort of helps make it interesting because we can gamify it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I mean, no, that's interesting. Okay. No, I didn't expect, because, I know because I read a little bit of, the metaverse, the interoperability that you guys are offering, but, totally missed out about the gamification side. And, I think that's also pretty interesting. I think it just adds, it is attractive in many ways, but at the same time too, I think what's most important thing is the utility side. And, but there's two things that caught my attention. You mentioned about, the health data. And if I'm correct, because I came from the traditional financial space, so getting credit data, credit scoring, credit ratings and stuff, that information is really important. But what I thought that was a lot of money, but what I learned was health data, your health records is way, way more valuable, way more important for hackers or bad actors in different countries or groups or whatever. I thought that was quite interesting, but that also scared the heck out of me. So, I mean, could you kind of like break it down for me on like why is health data way more important than financial data or other data?
Yeah, I mean, very good question, right? I think health data, as you know, is very valuable when it comes to the pharma industry. Not just the pharma industry, but also the insurance industries as well, right? Like where they want to gauge your risk portfolio.
Sure.
Right. So that's why, but the issue is it's hoarded, right? Like you have these brokers who actually just collect this data. And there's a good piece I'll actually send you that John Oliver did on HBO. He's a very, very famous, I guess, a speaker who actually speaks on HBO. Entertaining guy. I'm sure you must have heard him.
Sure.
But he did a fantastic piece on data brokers, right? Where he was talking about specific incidents where sensitive data, like, people with diabetics in a specific region was leaked. Right. And they just started getting random marketing calls, right? But you're right. It is risky. It's a risky business, right? When it comes to data being collected by a third party that is not looked after well. That's only because you don't have control over that situation, right? You're basically handing your data to a third party, and the third party is responsible for it, right? Whereas here, what we are trying to advocate a bit more is the fact that essentially we want to have that data control brought down to the end user, right? Brought down to the end user, and our protocol provides a mechanism to protect this data, right? It's actually locked in a way through our system, through the protocol architecture, essentially, where it can actually be locked in a way to ensure that it is a lot more secure with a key that only is accessible by the person providing the data. So if the person providing the data provides access to the data using the key, then certainly, someone can actually access the data using the key that's provided. At any point in time, they can destroy the key, and the data gets destroyed. So we will look at various complexities like, the GDPR compliance and all of these other personal data protection compliances. So there's a lot to it that actually happens behind the scenes. But the end thing here to note is you are in control of the data. You're not handing over the control to a third party, which, then has the ability to do whatever they want to do with the data, if that makes sense.
No, sure. Yeah. No, it just sounds really great, that, regular people like me could have control of data because I remember living in the States. A lot of times in the news, you see a lot of, like data leak or, there's a hack at Sony or, your credit scoring systems like, Equinox or TransUnion, they had, millions of people's data got hacked and stuff. So, so it's also interesting to learn about.
That's what happens, Marcos, when you have a centralized data repository, right? But when it's decentralized, the risk comes down, right? I mean, I'm not saying the risk is eliminated because that's not possible.
Sure.
Essentially, the risk comes down because the risk is distributed. It's no longer centralized, right? Like where you have a repository of, tens of thousands of users' data essentially stored. I mean, if I go, for example, and put my email address down, there's a site where you can actually go and put your email address down and tell you where all the exploits have happened. And you'll be surprised, right?
Yeah.
What sort of data has been taken from
right? I remember that website. Yes, I forgot the name, but I know what you're referring to. That is fascinating. Yeah. But yeah, now with regards to, you are covering personal data protection, you're covering health data, but also with Itheum, you have come up with, different, tools which are connected to the Itheum protocol. I mean, could you kind of give a glance overview?
Yep, certainly. I can give a bit of a higher level overview as such, but essentially the protocol has multiple layers. So it is actually a full-fledged data protocol, and we built it in such a way that it's completely modular, right? So, and it's, since we are from a Web2 traditional background, we're not only thinking Web3, we're thinking about because a lot of the data that actually we are planning to bring into the platform is from Web2, right? So it's from traditional space. So we've got to make that process of onboarding the data from Web2 to Web3 an easy process, right? We don't want to make it so complicated that nobody would be willing to do anything for it. So we built the system in such a way that it's completely modular. We have obviously the Itheum data DEX, which is the decentralized data exchange. That's the heart of everything. That's where all the magic happens. And then, of course, we've got streams of data that actually get ingested into these decks, right? So as part of the decks, we have this component called the data cat, or the data collection and analytics toolkit. What that helps you do is essentially create these adapters that can be connected to various Web2 sites or Web2 platforms, which lets you suck in the data and ingest it into the decks as a data stream. Right. So once the data comes in, essentially you can obviously claim the data, saying, hey, look, this is my data. So we already have wellness. We have health, heart rate related data. So we have some platforms already connected to the decks, and we're looking to add games, other health, wellness applications. Everything just gets connected through the data cat, through our connectors. Yeah. And the data gets streamed in essentially, and it's not stored on chain. Obviously, you can't store data on chain. So we store it in a number of various fashions to suit the type of data, and the complexity of the data, and also the localized data privacy requirements to comply with GDPR, onshore requirements, a lot of other background things, which is actually quite complex, right? But we keep all of that in mind when we actually store the data, and then we lock it with a key, right? Which you own. And obviously, no one has access to it but you. At any point, you can destroy the key, as I said. So data is ingested by you. Then now in the decks, you can trade the data individually, but we envisage most of the trade will actually happen through what we call data coalition DAOs. So we have a concept of DAOs within our infrastructure as well, which are nothing but, if you put it in simple Web2 terms, they're like enterprises. Sure. Right? So you'd come and set up an enterprise in there. That enterprise would say, hey, look, you're generating some data that's valuable to me. I see a market for it. Good example, we'll be announcing a partnership soon in about a month or so, quite a substantial one with a healthcare provider, where they are collecting wellness data. All right. Like, they have a utility NFT, which gives you access to gyms and, some basic health related, wellness related things. Yeah. And they have, on the opposite side, they actually have an insurance company that wants this data. Oh, right. Yeah. So you see what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
So
essentially, it's definitely getting very valuable right now.
Yeah. So the idea is everybody who holds this NFT, so they are like a hybrid. So we've got a very good scenario where we've got people who understand crypto a little bit because they have one of these NFTs, which gives them access to the gyms and the wellness centers, right? And each time they go and access the gym or the wellness center, we're capturing, some data from them, and that data they're happy to share it if they get something in return. Yeah. So the idea is essentially they would set up a DAO. These individual, providers of the data will mint an avatar within the system, connect up to that, and basically trade their data through the DAO, right? But in a bulk format. Yeah. So this is just one use case, but like this, we're looking at many other such use cases where the data can be collected and incentivized. And we have mechanisms to ensure that each time the data is traded, the end person actually gets something out of it. So even if it's retraded, we can mint the data as an NFT, for example. Okay. Right. And each time the NFT is traded and through the system, the person who provided the data actually gets incentivized for it. So you can just imagine it's just tremendous amount of potential, earning potential as well, right? So
no, because I'm really happy for you because I got really excited, with the blockchain, you're connecting with another entity, working with gyms, and then on the other hand, you're connecting with insurance companies because they definitely need incredible amounts of data to come up with these like a risk profile and stuff. So
exactly. Yeah.
For me, I really value what I call crypto entrepreneurship, to be able to solve the problems in the marketplace. And I definitely my goal with the XTcast and also my personal podcast, the Cryptocosm, is just it's all about how cryptocurrencies and blockchain-based solutions are revolutionizing the internet, information, money. And you're doing that. And to me, that is something that I want to make sure that it gets amplified out there and also get repeated too, because this is really valuable service that you're doing. And I think what I really wanted to ask you is, aside from the blockchain, the blockchain protocol stuff, is the entrepreneurial side, because I think it's really cool that you moved into the blockchain, you created Ethereum protocol, and now you're developing partnerships. So I wanted to kind of ask you about what is your thoughts about collaborations and partnerships, especially in the blockchain space?
Yeah, well, we're just starting, right? So it's only March this year that we actually launched the token, and we're in pretty much early stages now. We were just fortunate to launch it just before the market hit what it is now. And it worked out well for us because it's given us some breathing space to actually really focus on the tech aspect of things and not just get deviated by so many other things that are happening. Crypto sometimes can be very, very busy, right? And it's too much going on. And
a lot of distractions.
So in a way, this was sort of like a blessing, even though most people are cursing right now. It was like a blessing for us to give us a bit of a breather. Mm-hmm. And anyone who's been in crypto long enough, I certainly haven't, but those who have survived these multiple winters will say the same thing, right? It'll come to an end some stage. Right now it's sort of like the ones that were all just fluff were the ones that will, basically struggle, but ones with substance, the projects with substance. And that's what we're doing. We're finding these projects to connect with, right? And we're not trying to do everything by ourselves. I mean, we're looking to connect with other projects that provide means of us procuring the data, other various platforms and other projects as well that actually build other blockchain tech, which actually help. Like, for example, decentralized identity, right? That's another thing that's actually quite big in Web3, right? Like the ability to provide not a KYC type centralized identity, but a decentralized identity. And that's also something that we need because each of our data avatars needs to be unique to an individual. Right? So we need to be able to marry them to an ID somewhere, but it shouldn't be a centralized one, right? So there are a lot of complexities like this that we have to solve, and that's what the partnership's all about: working with other companies with similar solid tech backgrounds, and hence why we also picked a blockchain that is very tech oriented, which is the Elrond blockchain, to launch our token, and they are very tech oriented, and they've been very supportive of us, and they see the future. And that's why I'm in this too, because I see this, making such a headway, not in our generation, but definitely my kids' generation. This is going to be a big deal. Right. And the whole decentralization aspect, more so the data aspect too, with the fact that of us transitioning now from to a virtual world to a metaverse world, so your data points increase, as you already know. You might have 100 data points right now, but once you get into the metaverse, you become 3,000 data points.
Sure.
Right? You've got your iris movements, your head movements, everything is a data point, right? So all the more reason why you should be, serious about owning that and not a third party. So that's what got me into it, and that's why I think the future is quite strong when people are more focused and understanding of these the intricacies of the data, right?
No. It is interesting you mentioned about entering the metaverse, and because I have a good friend, he actually has he has a metaverse incubation center. It's called Meta Incubator. So I had him in my personal podcast, Cryptocosm. His name is Sam Lai, and I asked him, hey, could you define what the metaverse is? So he mentioned that everyone has different meaning of metaverse, or how it originated and stuff. So I know a lot of people would give its origin story to the book Snow Crash, but I want to ask you, what is your version, or what does metaverse means to you? I hope I phrased it correctly. Sorry. Apologize.
Well, it's as you said, it may mean different things to different people, but for me, it's more about giving us an alternate way to experience certain things, which generally would take us a lot of effort to experience, right? For example, visiting a different location, right? Just set up somewhere else in the world, and hotels are doing this. Where I think the Palm Jumeirah is actually already doing this. where they actually have a metaverse hotel that you can go into, walk up to the front desk, talk to the front desk clerk, go up to the room, check out what the room is like, go and look at the view, right? Come down, go walk up to the beach, look at what the beach looks like. So all of this you can experience from your house, and then go, hey, look, this looks nice.
Oh, right. Interesting.
I think I will go there in real life. So, so things like that, right? Like which you could never do, right? Until you look, it's a give or take. It could be a good experience, it could be an opposite experience. But for me, it's more about just getting exposure to I think a lot more, right, than what is actually available, and not restricting things by any means. And there's so much that can be done if you think about it. Like if you take a shop, and this is what we are excited about. If you take a normal shop that you would go to in a mall, the shop is going to be same whether it's you or me that walks into that shop, right?
True.
The shop doesn't know anything about me, or it doesn't know anything about you. But what if it can? What if the shop knows that your favorite color is black, right? Wouldn't it be nice if you walked into that shop and you only saw all the black stuff and you don't want to see anything else? You're not distracted, you're focused.
Sure. Okay.
Right? So this is where I think, like the metaverse can play a very important role in sort of helping with choice.
Okay.
Right? As you said, it means many things to many people, but again, same thing. You have your shopping preferences. You walk up to a shop and you share your shopping preferences with the shop. Shop can go, yep, this is what you say that you like, and this is what I have of what you like that I'm showing you. Right, and you choose what you like. I mean, you don't get distracted.
I like that. I like that.
Right? So
sorry, I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt. I think there's like a few seconds delay, but just to connect with your story about the shop and using the metaverse, I didn't think about the user experience that you could really customize. You can really personalize it. So I never thought that in that way, but I think that is quite a great proposition to utilize this kind of stuff.
Exactly, and that's what makes it, I think, quite interesting. It's very early days, right? Like we've got all these issues with everyone coming up with their own metaverse. Each one building their own technology. So it's going to take some time, but there are standards that are coming that the same challenges we face. Like we've got an avatar, but to take it into one metaverse, it's got to be bridged somehow. Because they all use different standards, but there are some standards emerging now which actually everyone's sort of trying to stick to make it in such a way that it's interoperable, right? That would be the right word. When that happens, it's going to be tremendous, right? Like to be able to pick where you want to go, but with your avatar, and not having to have to create one each time in every single metaverse.
So just a quick question, because because I was trying to learn a little bit about metaverse, about interoperability between a couple of metaverses. Because the two words that came in mind, you mentioned bridges, and there's also relay. So just explain to me, like I'm a fifth grader, like what's the bridge and what's the relay?
Well, I'm not a full bottle on those either, man. I'm not a tech guy by any means, but I have a fundamental concept of it. But
obviously,
bridges are the ones. I mean, you're talking about what I was talking about was more so like for a metaverse avatar, right? Or let's say you're building something that's metaverse interoperable. You need to follow a specific standard. So there's a standard called Unity, which is what a lot of these metaverses are now building. The new ones that are being built. And that would enable anything to be teleported, like a character or an avatar to move from one to another without any change, right?
Okay, gotcha.
And I think that is one aspect. So in our protocol, we have created like what we call a green room. And we call it the green room protocol, just like, the actors in the backstage where they go into a green room before they go on live. Similarly, we have a green room where you can come in and enter Decentraland or enter different types of metaverses, right? So that's something that we're trying to come up with to help that interoperability. I think the bridges that you were referring to were the bridges that often have security issues that's when we are bridging, I guess, from one chain to another chain, right? And learning and minting. And that process, of course, is quite complex. So we are on like Elrond chain, but we've got to be multi-chain, right? For our protocol to work, we can't be stuck on one chain. It has to work on any chain. So we've got to bridge some of our supply out into multiple chains. So that's something we're looking to do down the track. But again, risks, right? So we've got to make sure we do it in a way where we minimize the risk as much as possible.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Because just recently here in Dubai, they had this thing, MetaCon. So I just learned about, about like Sandbox, Gala Games. I mean, that it is interesting to see there's quite a number of different metaverses. Everyone has their own little spin to it. So, and you're right. I mean, we're still in the early days. I know sometimes I feel like, I've been in the space for quite a long time, but, I'm glad, like talking to you, it's good that you kind of reminded, hey, we're still early, so there's so much that's coming up. So anyways, even though now we're in the early stage, but I mean, you've been in the space long enough, I'm sure you might see some future trends coming in the way. I'm not asking you to make any predictions, none of any sort, but is there like maybe one or two future trends that you are seeing or you're looking forward to here in the crypto blockchain space?
Well, I mean, the number, as you said, that are actually coming up. I mean, because we're doing a bit in gaming, I have a bit more idea of what's happening in the gaming space because it's going through a transition now. I think the whole P2E space or the pay to earn space is sort of going through a rough patch now, right? Because all the returns are not what they used to be, the earnings are not what they used to be. So there's a transition happening where I guess a lot of the traditional P2E games are sort of struggling to keep up with the times, right? And there are some, but what they're saying is it's going to open up. And as they say, the bear market brings a lot of new innovation, and a lot of the amazing tech that came out in crypto was built during bear markets, right? Which includes Ethereum. Right. So this is what they're saying, right? So this is the time that there's going to be a big shift in a lot of these traditional spaces. So P2E is probably going to go through a shift, and the newer generation of Web3 games that actually will be coming out later on this year are probably going to follow a slightly different model. So it's going to be no longer a purely like play to earn. So they're calling it play and earn now. Okay. So it's not going to be all about earning, but it's going to be actually enjoying playing the game and getting something out of it, as opposed to just logging away your job for earnings. Right. So things like this are sort of happening. There's some transitions happening in that space. And then in addition to that, obviously with our space, data is going through a lot too, right? Like in regard, because the ownership angle is changing, people are getting more aware of their data and why it's important that they own it. So we expect that whole concept of, and recently as well, I mean, I'm sure you'd have seen, there's been a lot of talk about, with Vitalik talking about the soulbound SPTs, soulbound tokens.
Yeah, I heard that name, but I haven't dived deep into that yet.
So we resonate very well with that because our actual avatars are soulbound. So they're actually connected to one entity, right? So it's not transferable. Right, and that's what Vitalik the white paper that came out last month actually explained his concept of soulbound. So there's a lot of talk in that area about how this SPT soulbound aspect of things is going to change. Even Jack Dorsey recently tweeted about Web5. So people are talking about that. But the funny thing was he explained in his Web5 article exactly what Itheum is. Right, like what we're doing, decentralized identity, owning your own data. So it was like a wow moment for us because, hey, what is this thing?
Man, you don't need Jack Dorsey to tell you all that. You knew it. But to me, Jack Dorsey, he's a dinosaur. Sorry, in my opinion, but I think hey, you guys are right on the money. You guys are ahead. So
there's a lot of things like this happening, right? Like where different thinking, right? The traditional thinking that's taking place now, where everyone's taken a step back from just constantly looking at the market to trying to do something better and move things onto a different phase as such.
All right. No, that's really cool. But on seriousness aside, I think what I remember like Jack Dorsey shared that Web5 that document. I think it's I'm sure it is a testament to what you guys are working on. You're in the right direction, and I'm glad. And look, I'm glad that you guys are focused on data privacy because to me, I guess I'm more like a privacy advocate kind of person, I would say, because I tend to be more like into like the privacy groups, like like different coins, like Monero, Pirate Chain, but I also see that it's a much bigger game too in terms of protecting your data and also even like protecting your data from like your Web2 companies and other entities too. So having that ownership that regular people like me and you, we have a stake in the new economy. So I think this is something I would love to see that. But anyways, we are almost close to the end. But I wanted to share this statement with you, and let me know if you kind of agree with me or not. The statement I was sharing with some friends, and hopefully with this XT meetup too, just stating that the crypto prices, they are crumbling down, but crypto adoption is going up higher and stronger than ever before. And I see that in the bear markets, you're going to see real tech, real projects, real development, and real value being created. Is that something you agree to it, or you have your own version?
Yeah, man, 100%, right? Like I was telling you exactly the same thing, right? And it's the time for, I think, the actual projects with substance to shine, right?
Yeah.
And for people to start, it takes away that whole monetary aspect alone, and it starts. So even our community, it's a good example. Is like, even if we looked at our community maybe 2-3 months back compared to the community we have now, the type of questions we get on a daily basis is completely changed.
Yeah.
Right. So
true.
Before it was all about price and things like that, but now people are actually asking. I'm just surprised, right? Like how they're coming and looking at it. They're actually drilling down. They're asking, what does this mean? Wow, this is amazing. This is how this is going to help me. Mm-hmm. So they're relating more. So it's really filtered out those who are in it to make a quick buck, as opposed to those who are now thinking longer term, right? Like, hey, there's something deeper here, like something deeper is going on here. Let me get into it a bit more, right? So that noise, as we were saying before, that noise is sort of taken away, and you've got that actual underlying layer, which is actually quite important. So totally with you on that.
Awesome. Yeah. Definitely there's quite a change. And of course, this bear market, I would say is wiping out the weak hands, the crooked hands, and it's also, I would say the bear market also is testing out the entrepreneurs in the space. Like you're going to find out who are the real entrepreneurs out there, right? So I think that is, I know it's a rough market out there, but I personally believe we need it. I think that like we need to have some sort of a regular cleansing, I would say, just to prepare us.
Yeah. Of course, a correction, as they call it, right? A market correction. Mm-hmm. It happens every now and again in real estate, in the stock market. It's always a correction that happens that brings everybody back on track again.
Sure. Yeah, agreed. Yeah. But anyways, we are at the end. So, hey, Praveen, I want to propose to you this. All right. So, look, I enjoyed this fireside chat, and got to learn more about you, which I really value. I think that's important for me. But also got to learn a little bit about Itheum protocol and what you guys are building with data privacy, with Metaverse, and this deck of offerings that you have. And you know what? Hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, definitely, I would like to plan with you and your team to have a proper episode all about Itheum. So we would love for you to give a presentation, not only just physically, if not physically, but at least here for the XTcast, where we want to present the Itheum protocol to our xt.com community. So that they get to learn something new and what you got to offer. And I think that this space needs more quality projects to be presented and showcase how crypto and blockchain-based solutions are going to revolutionize the internet, information, and money. So, Praveen, are you up for that, sir?
Oh yeah, definitely. Only thing is, I'm the only one in Dubai. We're like a purely, decentralized setup. We've got people from all over the world, like from America to Australia. And everything in between, like true spends of crypto. But yeah, we'd love to, take part in that and bring some of the team members in remotely if I can. That would be awesome.
Definitely. Because you see, for me, this is more than just not just really being with XT.com or just for my own podcast. I'm thinking from the industry perspective. I think this is something I have a bigger mission. So this is more than trying to expand our crypto, I would say, on-chain economy, if I want to roughly call it. So definitely I would love for you to give a wonderful presentation for the XT.com community to learn more. So we'll definitely plan this thing out, and we'll love to have either you or anyone else, so whether remotely or otherwise. So definitely I'm excited for that. So Praveen, thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it. And it's fun learning about you. And I'm glad we got to connect.
Thank you very much, Marcos. Yeah, it was really nice to talk to you and interact with you as well. And yeah, look, always happy to share more and talk more about, I guess, the views. Data, in particular, personal data is something that touches everyone everywhere around the world. So it's always something that everyone's going to have some interest in. So happy to share and be a part of your future events as well. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. So all right, fam. Hey, we gotta go. We got things to do. So, anyways, thank you for joining in, and you will see us again, and you will see Praveen in due time. So y'all be good. Y'all be safe. We will talk to you soon. Bye for now.